Hello and welcome back to another FPL transfer tips video. This week we have a couple more transfers for you to take a look at, and I'm going to give my recommendations on whether you should buy them, sell them, keep them or avoid them. As always, we're looking at the most transferred in and out players just to get an idea of what to do with the most popular transfers. Now last week we had a mixed bag, we got 4 out of our 6 correct. Unfortunately with our keeps they didn't go as well as everything else, mainly obviously Bukayo, Saka. We had him on our keep list to play against Bournemouth and obviously was not in the squad, which is unfortunate. So he is back again this week. I think he's one of the only times where we do bring someone back into back-to-back transfer videos because we want to change what we want to do with them. So it's kind of obvious what we're going to do with Saka this week, but I will speak about it further on. Jimenez, we obviously recommended to buy this week. Huge win. Obviously picked up a goal, 7 points, which was lovely. Onana was again up there with the top sells last week, still surprisingly. Of course, that was a win. Again, not really expecting him to do much. Justin and Avoid, again, one of the most transferred in players. I believe he was like second for the week last week. And then Kanate as well, obviously playing against Chelsea, was also up there. So let's see who we've got for this week. So we just mentioned him, we're bringing him back again. Bukayo Saka is obviously going to be a sell this week. He missed out in the Champions League tonight, or as I'm recording this is tonight. Missed out, and he looks as though he could potentially miss out against Liverpool at the weekend. Now, even if he is fit, it's definitely not a fixture. Well, it's obviously it's Saka, he can score, assist in any game, but it's definitely not a fixture you want to be keeping him for. And even when you look at the next 3 fixtures for him, you can see them on screen now. He's got Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea, 3 very difficult fixtures over the next 3. And I think even if he was fit, even if he hadn't got injured, I would still be looking to sell him this week. So he's got 271,000 transfers out this week, and again I don't really think there's too much else needed to say. He's an injury doubt. We obviously will get more news over the course of the week. Isn't expected to drop in price anymore. I believe he dropped last night, so he's 10 million. Obviously it is still early in the week. We do have a Friday deadline this week, so there is going to be less chance of him dropping again, but it's just something to keep in mind. But for me, 100% would be selling off Saka this week. Now, a very popular replacement for him is going to be Heung-Min Son, and we've got him down on our buy list. Now, I don't have any stats or anything to show you because obviously he has been injured for a portion of the season, so it would be unfair to compare him against other midfielders who have obviously played a lot more games. But for me, 100% going to be a buy. One of Spurs' main players, of course. We still haven't had a penalty for Spurs, so we don't know if it's going to be Solanke or Son on the penalties. I still do think it is going to be Son, so it is something definitely to keep in mind. 190,000 transfers in so far this week. Some nice fixtures coming up as well. Palace, very poor form. They're right down the bottom of the table. An away fixture, which is always difficult when you're playing against Palace, but definitely something that he can still take advantage of. Villa at home. Villa haven't had the best defensive record so far in the league this season, so I think he could still get something in that game, but the main thing is going to be that Ipswich game at home where I think he could do really nicely. Solanke is still a really nice pick, but he doesn't seem to be getting the points. He's not performing as well as we would want him to, and I think Son's just got that reliability about him. He's always been a good FPL asset. Now that he's back from injury, obviously scored last week as well, get an assist taken away from him, which has caused some controversy, but I think with these fixtures he definitely can do well over the next couple of weeks. Now next up I've got Josko Gvardiol. Now this is probably one that could definitely affect my seasonal success rate because obviously you can see on screen he has Southampton at home this weekend. Now I think that's probably going to be one of your more nailed clean sheets of the entire season. So Gvardiol will probably score some decent points this week, and we're going to have to come back to this next week and have to mark him off as a failure. But obviously going forward, I think he's a little bit more of a risk. Pep's came out and said that he's not going to be able to play every single game, which is obvious anyway. He's not going to be able to play all the league games, all the Champions League games, but he kind of has hinted at some rotation with him, and the fact that the next 2 games are also against Bournemouth and Brighton away from home. City haven't been the best defensively. Now looking at Gvardiol's last 2 matches, he's obviously been picking up points through goals. Now, as I just mentioned, they've not been the best defensively. The last 3 matches against Newcastle, Fulham and Wolves, they haven't kept a clean sheet. Now, when obviously, like I mentioned, he's getting points through the goals. He's scored 2 goals in his last 3 games, but when you look at his expected goals, he's got 0.08 against Newcastle. He obviously scored in that. He then had 0.08 again against Fulham, didn't score in that, and then he had 0.02 against Wolves, and again obviously picked up a goal in that. Now in his last 3 games, he's only had 4 shots, and he's scored from 2 of them. Now obviously really nice if you do own him, but in terms of picking up now and expecting him to continue that goal scoring form over the next few games, I don't really think it's going to continue. Obviously, we had the period at the end of last season where Gvardiol was getting very much forward, but that was when Kyle Walker was in the team. He's currently out injured. Rico Lewis is occupying that position, and he's also getting forward. So Gvardiol has been sitting back a little bit, and I don't think these 2 goals is an indication that he's going to be returning to that form at the end of last season. So personally, I don't think it's going to be sustainable. Again, like I mentioned, he probably will pick up some good points this weekend against Southampton, but I think for future upcoming games, it's going to be a struggle. He's not going to be getting the goals that he's currently getting, and obviously Man City are struggling with clean sheets as well. Next up, we have our next buy, and we had him in the transfer tips video a couple of weeks ago, but since then he has continued to be right up the top of the transfers in list. Once again this week, he's had just about 200,000 transfers in, so I thought I might as well bring him back. If you don't have him already, he is 100% a buy. I think Brentford have good fixtures all the way up until I believe game week 14, so you're talking about 5 or 6 more weeks of nice fixtures for him, and he has been one of the best performing midfielders so far. You can see his stats on screen. In terms of expected goals from midfielders, he is sitting at number 6. In terms of expected assists, he's sitting at number 5, and then points for midfielders, he's also sitting at number 5. But when you look at his points compared to the players above him, you know, Salah, Palmer, Diaz, Saka, obviously excluding Diaz, you're talking all of the premium midfielders, and he's up there competing with them, you know. So with the pricing at 7.6 million and the fixtures he's got, again there's a bigger fixture list down the bottom. Ipswich in there, Leicester in there, Everton in there, Bournemouth in there. He's got 4 green fixtures in the next 5. If you do not currently own Bryan and Mbeumo, he is 100% a buy this week, because like I said, the stats are backing him. He's in fantastic form right now, and the fixtures are only getting better. Next up, we have another Arsenal player, and that is Kai Havertz. Again, another player I think I'd be selling this week. Similar to Saka, although doesn't really have the consistency that Saka usually does. You know, Havertz isn't exactly known for performing very, very well against bigger teams, you know, scoring 2 and 3 goals. Now, he's got difficult fixtures, of course, the same as Saka. I think with the Arsenal players, they all are pretty much sells for the next few weeks. I probably would maybe exclude Gabriel from that. You know, we know how Arsenal play against the bigger teams. They actually could be more likely to keep a clean sheet against the bigger teams than they are against some of the smaller teams where they would be attacking a bit more often. But against Liverpool, against Newcastle, against Chelsea, I wouldn't really be expecting Arsenal to be scoring too many goals. Again, similarly just mentioning that they do kind of sit back a bit against the bigger teams, they're not going to be scoring as many goals. And I don't think Havertz is going to be as effective. We saw it in the Champions League as well, where they only beat Shakhtar Donetsk 1-0, and that was without Saka and Odegaard in the team. So is Havertz going to be able to continue that form for the next few weeks without Arsenal's main creative players? I don't really think so. For me, I definitely would be selling him this week. But it's also not the end of the world, because there is so many good strikers that you can buy. You know, Raul Jimenez is in there, Solanke's in there with some good fixtures. There is a couple more, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But there's so many good replacements that you can get for Havertz. And I think for the next few weeks, I would definitely be looking to sell him. And finally, wrapping things up, I can't believe he's even made this video, but we've got Michael Keane, who is definitely in a void for me. He's only 4.1 million. He's expected to rise in price tonight up to 4.2 million, but he's already been transferred in 150,000 times this week. Now, at the end of the day, he's an Everton defender, and yes, Everton have been a little bit better defensively over the last few weeks, as you can see on screen, but I definitely wouldn't be wasting a transfer to try and get Michael Keane in. You can see by the points as well. Fantasy Football Hub predicts him to get 1.4 points against Fulham, 0.8 points against Southampton, and then 0 against West Ham. Because what you have to keep in mind is that Branthwaite is due back in a couple of weeks, and at that point, when he comes back, it's very likely that Michael Keane is going to drop back to the bench. So yes, as a 4.1 million midfielder, on paper looks like a good option. You know, he's starting right now. Everton have good fixtures for the next couple of weeks, and they've been a little bit better defensively, but at the end of the day, you're wasting a transfer on someone who probably isn't going to make your team. You know, I wouldn't be too comfortable starting Michael Keane in my starting 11 for the next few weeks, and he's probably going to get dropped in a couple of weeks when the main centre-back for Everton comes back. So for me, it'd be an avoid. Yes, again, it looks like it could be a steal at such a cheap price, but I think the fact that he's been transferred in 150,000 times already is just people jumping the gun way too early without doing any research. So again, the main point here is, like, if you needed a cheap defender in your team, again, like, to swap out one of your other 4 million defenders, yes, Keane could be a good option, but you're wasting a transfer, and 2, he's probably not going to play at all. So definitely would be avoiding it. Wouldn't be wasting your time on that one. Michael Keane is an avoid for this week. And that wraps up this week's transfer videos. We have a little bit more this week. We have no keeps, which is quite interesting. I was looking through the transfers out this week, and a lot of it was just Arsenal players, and there wasn't really too much to go off of, so there wasn't anyone in the transfers out, the popular transfers out list that I really did want to keep. So we've left that blank this week. We've got 3 buys, we've got 2 sells, and we've got the 1 avoid in Michael Keane. So hopefully we can again get our success rate back up towards that 70% and start to look towards some good numbers again. So if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like. Do you agree with all of the transfer tips we've gave today? If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe as well for more FPL content, and I'll see you all in the next video.